In the year 2154, the world is now under the control of 9 corporations that took over the planet after a catastrophe destroyed the Earth and killed around 9 billion people 25 years ago. Only a handful of elites now own everything, while hunger and poverty are widespread. The remaining inhabitants are divided into slaves and spectators. The network organizes a game called Re-8, the game of redemption, where 10 players are abducted, brainwashed, and dropped into a dark and narrow maze called Andron. The game is streamed to viewers worldwide through nano cameras attached to the player's retinas. Slaves are forced to place a bet on one of the players they think is likely to win. If the player wins, the slave is set free, but if the player dies in the game, the slave also meets the same fate in the outside world. These are the rules placed by the elite. The game is supervised by a ruthless businessman named Adam, who manipulates the game to ensure only one contestant, whom he has already chosen, survives. Meanwhile, Chancellor Gordon ensures the interests of the network are kept as the game proceeds. The game starts with a woman named Eleanor, who just woke up with no memories whatsoever. She begins to navigate her surroundings and sees a strange symbol with blood on it. Scared, she runs away only to bump into another woman, Valerie, who tells her the same story about having no memories. While they are asking about each other's identity, they see a woman dressed in white who appears like a ghost. Spooked by these events, they run into some sort of control room where they meet 2 other players, Luke and Alexander, who also don't know their names and identities. They reveal to the 2 women that they have been alone for a while and that they are the first people they have seen in days. They don't trust each other, and everyone looks at each other with suspicion. The women tell Alexander about seeing a woman dressed in white, so he goes out to check but can't see anyone. However, the woman dressed in white is seen going past him without any noise. In another part of the maze, 3 people have already woken up and started to navigate: June, Christoph, and Julian. They also have memory loss but have adjusted to the fact that they have to work together to survive. They find a couple of flashlights and begin canvassing the maze, realizing it is some sort of warehouse with different machines. Alexander, on the other hand, sees the partition of the maze close. Eleanor sees a symbol similar to the one she saw when she woke up, but before she can say anything, Alexander, freaked out by what he saw, comes back to his group and asks them to leave. They go up the stairs to find a room with lockers, and inside are 2 other players, Anita and Fly. Anita is lying on the ground while Fly is acting like a crazy guy. When Fly calms down and rests, the group decides to go get Anita. After they go inside, Fly wakes up and attacks them, beating the 2 men up, but Valerie knocks him out with a steel pole. They restrain him and tend to Anita, who seems to be unconscious. Meanwhile, Alexander and Valerie are back in the room where Fly was tied up and tell the rest of their group what happened. In the middle of their conversation, Christoph and Julian enter the room. They lie about what happened to June. Suddenly, the person in a hoodie enters the room and scares them, but she reveals her mask and takes her hoodie off. She is another contender named Gabriella, who claims to have been inside the game and hasn't seen anyone since. Christoph tries to attack Gabriella, stating she has something to do with June's disappearance, but Alexander calms everyone down, and they try to have a conversation. While Gabriella explains what happened to her, Fly surprises everyone by saying he remembers her. This is unexpected for everyone, including Adam, who didn't expect any of them to remember anything. He quickly changes the setting of the game. A partition divides the room into 2, separating Eleanor, Julian, and Fly from the rest of the group. Julian cuts Fly's restraints, and they quickly get out of the room before their section of the partition is closed. Meanwhile, Alexander and the group are confronted by the woman in a white dress. She appears in the window, but Gabriella throws a chair at the window and breaks it, allowing almost all the group to escape. Luke, being the last one to leave the room, is almost out when the partition suddenly caves in and crushes him, killing him instantly. After this incident, the rest of the group leaves. Adam is then seen praising the action of the woman in white, who suddenly appears out of an invisible claw. She is some sort of artificial intelligence that responds to Adam's commands and is also the one who killed Luke. Julian, Eleanor, and Fly are on the move. Julian asks Fly where he remembers seeing Gabriella, but Fly tells him he is not sure and it is just some feeling. Julian notices the strange symbol and stays behind to view it closer. He puts his arm inside the symbol, and something 3-dimensionally prints. A laser gun appears on Julian's arm, and the symbol opens into a passage. Meanwhile, Eleanor and Fly walk towards an unauthorized area they are not supposed to access. Suddenly, they are attacked by armed men. Fly puts up a good fight but is outnumbered. While the armed men are on top of him, Julian uses his new laser-printed machine to release an electric charge and neutralize them. He then leads Eleanor and Fly through the new passage. Back in the maze, Anita, who is now chained to metal, is being tortured and interrogated by Adam. It is revealed that Anita used to work for the network and was in charge of security. Adam asks her how she tampered with the system, believing she was behind the mixed-up memories of the contestants. She refuses to answer, and he orders the armed men, the same men who attacked Eleanor and Fly, to continue torturing her. Alexander and his group arrive at a room with a strange symbol on the wall. They try to match it to their tattoos, but none of their symbols match. While discussing this, Gabriella's memory is triggered, and she remembers her past correctly, including the timeline of the world's destruction. In her past life, Gabriella was a network police officer who did everything she could to survive. She perfectly describes the destruction of the world, the network of the 9 corporations, and everything to the group. When Valerie asks her what year it is, Gabriella tells them it is 2154. Christoph, suspicious after learning she was a cop, doesn't agree with her. Alexander finds a match to the symbol on the wall from the plastic papers. He shows it to Gabriella, and it matches her symbol. She puts her hand inside the symbol on the wall, and it opens to another room. Gabriella walks into the room while the rest of the group wonders what is inside. Gabriella returns with an assault rifle. Adam and the Chancellor are pleased with this outcome as more slaves start to bet on the former police officer. Eleanor wakes up from a nightmare that could also be a memory. Choosing to forget about it, she gets her group moving on their journey. She gets caught up in a memory similar to her nightmare, which results in her separating from her group. Meanwhile, Julian and Fly continue their journey. They briefly see the other team led by Gabriella, but before they can speak, they are attacked by the same armed men. This time, the woman dressed in white is with the attackers. A fight breaks out, and Gabriella hits some men but gets separated from her group. Alexander, Christoph, and Valerie escape through a large hole Gabriella made while trying to hit the woman in white. The men try to follow them, but the feed is interrupted after it is reported that they went out of the grid. Julian and Fly move around quickly, fighting the armed men on their way. They run into Eleanor, who has no idea what just happened. They travel across some rooms only to get back to Gabriella, who is now overrun by the armed men. Before the woman in white disables her, she blows up a gas tank, causing an explosion. Eleanor and her group make it out before the explosion reaches them. This event is a serious blow to Adam's reputation. After the explosion, the feed to the whole world is interrupted. Chancellor Gordon visits Adam, who tries to explain the situation as a temporary setback. The Chancellor gives him a warning, stating that failure at this stage will have dire consequences. Adam promises to get the game back on track, stating he still has a few cards up his sleeve. Shortly after the Chancellor's visit, Adora manages to restore the feed, showing Eleanor and her group. Adam tells her to bring the commander into the game. Meanwhile, the Chancellor is back at his home, furious with the slave girl after discovering she placed a bet without his knowledge. She doesn't tell him who she bet on, but the Chancellor tells her they will talk later, as something urgent has come up. In an off-grid place where the system doesn't track anything, Anita, who is trying to convince the armed forces to come to her side, is rescued by Alexander, Christoph, and Valerie. They easily eliminate the threat and free her. She tells them she heard her voice through some ducts. Anita removes her restraint and shows them the tunnel where their conditioning happened. During one player's conditioning, old memories are removed and new ones from different timelines are inserted. As a former network member, Anita tapped into the system's conditioning, meaning there might be a way for the players to get back their memories. She uploaded a virus that corrupted the game's database, causing some players like Eleanor to access their real memories. Meanwhile, Adam has managed to get files on the Chancellor with the help of the slave girl. She betrayed the Chancellor because the network killed her family. In return for helping Adam retrieve the files, he helped her bet on the winning contestant. Back in the game, Anita devises a plan to stay off the grid and escape the maze. She first destabilizes the conditioner by throwing a metal rod, causing a massive surge of electricity through the maze. She then tells the group she plans to use the files on her neurochip to expose Adam's treachery. She reveals that the network was behind the catastrophe that destroyed the world. The group agrees to help her get the information out to the world but warns them about being attacked on the way out. Next, they face the commander, a strong adversary whose punches contain a red beam. He nearly defeats all 3 men, but Alexander subdues him with his karate skills. Suddenly, Kristoff surprises everyone by revealing his true colors. He ruthlessly snaps Fly's neck, causing many people who bet on Fly to die, then attacks Alexander. After fighting him for a while, Kristoff throws Alexander through a window. Julian, who has found June's body and discovered she was murdered by Kristoff, joins the fight. While the men are fighting, the women find another symbol on the wall. This time, the symbol matches Valerie's tattoo. She inserts her hand into the symbol and retrieves an assault rifle. Just before Kristoff is about to kill Julian, Valerie shoots and kills him with a single shot. The commander, who is back to attack the group, is finally put down by Alexander. The group makes it out, but the place isn't what Anita expected. After seeing what happened, the Chancellor orders Adam to surrender to the police, but Adam has one more card to play. The group is betrayed by Eleanor, who reveals that the woman in the white dress is her sister, an artificial intelligence like her. Eleanor kills Anita by blasting her from behind and electrocutes Julian. Eleanor is almost unstoppable, but Valerie anticipates her movement and destroys her using Julian's laser-printed machine. In the end, Adam emerges as the winner by placing all the blame on the Chancellor using the files from the slave girl. Alexander and Valerie make it out alive but not completely out of Adam's reach. The movie ends with Julian awakening from the electric shock,